What's going on? So in today's video, we're going to go over all the different types of real estate financing that you can use as an investor. Before we get into it, I want to stress how important it is to get pre-approved with your lender. That's a conventional lender, FHA lender, VA lender, hard money lender, whatever lender you choose to go with, you're going to want to get what's called pre-approved by your lender. This is basically the lender is giving you the green light, saying that they have vetted you, your financial resources, your bank statements, your credit score, everything that they would need to know in order to give you money to go borrow from them to purchase real estate. So you can go to any of these lenders and say, hey, I'm looking to start buying this kind of property. I need to get pre-approved. And then they'll go ahead and direct you through the rest of the process. Once that process is done, they're going to issue what's called a pre-approval letter. You can then give this letter to agents, to whomever you need to, just to let them know that you're serious, you've already been vetted by a lender, and that you can purchase this property if you want to. So without further ado, let's get into it. So that's pre-approval. Next up is going to be a conventional loan. Now, if you're an investor, this really isn't going to apply to you. It might in certain cases, like a rental property or things like that. But if you're flipping homes, probably not applicable to you. Conventional loans are what a typical home buyer would purchase with, like a 20% down payment. Even conventional loans, I've heard they go even as low as 3 to 5% down now, which is pretty cool. So look further into that. But this is where more investors take advantage of financing. So this is going to be hard money, private money, gap, and creative. Hard money is essentially a short-term loan, usually for 1 to 2 years. It's at a higher interest rate with higher fees associated with servicing the loan. This is typically referred to as a fix and flip loan because it's so short term. Basically, the lending criteria is much more loose than a conventional lender would be, meaning like for hard money, for example, what I do with my lender, if I have a good deal, I'll send them a link to the deal. I'll send them what the purchase price is, what the renovation is going to be, and what my ARV is based on comps that I pulled. I also send them comps. The lender will then, this is assuming they've already pre-approved me, they'll vet the deal themselves, and then they'll let you know what they can lend to it. So it's very loose on lending standards. It's really, if you have a good deal, it's fairly easy to get a hard money loan with really good terms. To find hard money lenders, you can go on websites like Google, for example, and search hard money lenders in your city. You can even go on websites like biggerpockets.com and search the hard money lender directory. I actually found my first 2 hard money lenders from BiggerPockets, which is great. And then, of course, you can network on real estate investor associations, things like that, because there's always lenders or always other investors there who can direct you to their resources. Private money is one of my favorite. Actually, it is my favorite type of lending. Excuse me. So private money, I just want to really go basic. So private money is borrowing money from someone you know, like your mom, your dad, your friend, your colleague, to go buy real estate. That's essentially private for private individual or institution. That's what private money is. These loans are great because you can literally structure them however which way you want. You can structure them 3 ways: debt, equity, and a hybrid of debt and equity. This video is not detailing the nuances of debt, equity, hybrid, and how you can structure that, but I do want to let you know that is an option for you. I'll give you one example. So I had an old colleague I used to work with. She invested $75,000 with me at a 10% interest rate, and that was going to be paid back upon the sale of the flip. So as soon as the flip sold, she's going to get back her $75K plus her 10% interest. That's how the private money works in a debt scenario. Next up is gap lending. So if you've ever heard of those crazy people online saying, buy real estate with 0 money out of your pocket, this is one of the ways you can do that with gap lending. And it's totally legit, totally credible. I do it all the time. My partner and I do it all the time. Gap lending is simply using a combination of hard money and private money to purchase a property. I'll give you an example. So let's say you go to a hard money lender and they say, hey, I can finance 80% of your purchase. Well, you still need to come up with a 20% down payment on the property. Now, you need to fill the gap of the 20% down payment. You get where gap lending comes from now. Essentially, you would get the 80% financing from your hard money lender, and then you would go to a private money lender, say your coworker, to borrow the 20% down payment to give to the escrow company and close the deal. That way, the gap of 20% has been filled and you just purchased the property with no money out of your own pocket. Next up is creative financing. This is definitely a close second of my favorites behind private money. Now, there's three main subcategories of creative finance. The first one is seller finance, second is subject to, and the third is a wrap. Let's go seller finance first. Seller finance works best when a seller has low or no mortgage left on their property, okay? Low or no mortgage on their property. Basically, the seller becomes the bank. You're going to be purchasing the property from the seller, and in turn, they're going to be financing your purchase of the property. I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you're going to buy a home for $500,000 and the seller agrees to seller finance you the property. Well, you don't have to get any bank loans. You don't have to do anything because the seller is the bank in this example. Basically, you and the seller agree to a price and you agree to terms of the loan. You already agreed to $500,000 for the purchase price. Now you need to discuss what the down payment's going to be, what the loan length is going to be, what the interest rate is going to be, and you can get as creative as you want. You build out this loan and then you make payments directly to the seller. Now, moving on to subject to financing. This is where best case, this is best used in situations where the seller has a high mortgage payment or they're underwater on their property. So subject to is when you take over the seller's existing finance or taking over the mortgage subject to the existing financing. Basically, you would go to a seller and let's say they have a $500,000 mortgage at a 3.5% interest rate because they bought, 3-4 years ago. Basically, you're going to take over their monthly mortgage payments and they're going to transfer ownership over to the property to you. This video is not going to detail why a seller would do that. You can do that research yourself. This video's objective is simply to showcase all the different ideas and then you can go and do research on your own. Lastly is going to be a wrap. So a wrap is a combination of seller finance and subject to. Let's say that the seller has a $500,000 mortgage and you're agreed to a sale price of $800,000. So you're going to take over that $500,000 mortgage, and then that gap of $300,000 in equity, the seller is going to seller finance that $300,000 to you. So it's just a layering of subject to on top of with seller financing on top. That's wrapping around the existing mortgage, right? So I hope you found value in this video. And again, this video was not a detail of each of these different types of financing. It was more of a high level approach that you can go and do your own research and try and get some financing lined up yourself.